But one of the things leading into this vote for the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, I know a lot of people are wondering, whoever has this job, are they going to convict Donald Trump?
Look, that is the number one issue. We know he's investigating. And what I'll say is I was the first to announce against Cy Vance. I, too, have a lot of issues, which is why I decided to run. I'm the candidate in the race who has the experience with Donald Trump. I was the chief deputy in the Attorney General's office. We sued the Trump administration over 100 times for the Muslim travel ban, for family separation at the border, for shenanigans with the census. So I know how to litigate with him. I also led the team that did the Trump Foundation case. So I'm ready to go.
Donald Trump found guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records in the first degree. All 34 are felonies.
Well, the Kangaroo Court in New York has spoken, and unless you've been living under a rock, you know that Donald Trump was convicted on all 34 felony counts. For the record, each count was a separate document or a separate check, all rolled into the same alleged crime. So George W. Bush is a borderline war criminal who invaded the Middle East and lied about weapons of mass destruction. Barack Obama used drone strikes against American citizens, and Joe Biden used his office and positions of power to sell influence in foreign nations, along with thousands of other crimes that were committed by presidents and former presidents that never made it to a courtroom. But Donald Trump is charged and convicted for a hush money payment to a porn star. Not to mention that these charges would have never even been brought if it was not Donald Trump running for president. And even if they were, it would have been a misdemeanor charge. Similar to how with the E. Jean Carroll case, they changed the statute of limitations, literally changed the law to allow her to sue Donald Trump. Personally, I don't care what Donald Trump's involvement is in the hush money payment, and I would say the same thing if it was Joe Biden or Barack Obama who was charged with this. It's a complete non-issue to me, and it definitely doesn't affect how I view the political realm. Nonetheless, here we are, and this is just the first step. We still have the Fani Willis case and the Jack Smith case that are going to happen as well. It's a toss-up to me right now whether they're trying to put Trump in prison or remove him from the ballot, and obviously both of those options together could work for them as well. I will say I don't think it's a coincidence that they set the sentencing to be done on July 11th and the GOP convention begins on July 15th. But again, I think the main takeaway here is that if Donald Trump had not run for president again, I don't think we see these charges along with many of the other charges that have come down as well. So now I'm going to play some of the reactions after the verdict. Most of them are probably exactly what you would expect them to be. If they are a supporter of Trump, they're against the verdict. And if they do not support Trump, then they are good with the verdict. You'll see that their talking point is that this was a jury and it was definitely not political, which is like saying Joe Biden or Barack Obama would get a fair trial in a small town in Kentucky. So we're going to start with Trump's comments after the verdict, and then we're going to go to Alvin Bragg, and then a bunch of other political figures giving their thoughts.
This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA, and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end, and we'll win, because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble. But this was a rigged decision right from day one with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
Why should voters vote for a convicted felon?
Are you going to drop out? You believe in the rule of law? You trust the jury? did my job. Our job is to follow the facts and the law without fear or favor. And that's exactly what we did here. And what I feel is just gratitude to work alongside phenomenal public servants who do that each and every day in matters that you all write about and make the press, and in lots of matters that you don't. I did my job. We did our job. Many voices out there. The only voice that matters is the voice of the jury, and the jury has spoken. And while this defendant may be unlike any other in American history, we arrived at this trial and ultimately today at this verdict in the same manner as every other case that comes through the courtroom doors.
I'm the candidate in the race who has the experience with Donald Trump. I was the chief deputy in the Attorney General's office. We sued the Trump administration over 100 times for the Muslim travel ban, for family separation at the border, for shenanigans with the census. So I know how to litigate with him. I also led the team that did the Trump Foundation case. So I'm ready to go.
So to my Republican colleagues who have been silent, what the radical left Democrats are counting on is your silence and your submission. You cannot bend a knee to this kind of stuff. You got to stand up to it. I know that the president's website went down, DonaldJTrump.com. People get out and support President Trump because he's the only person right now in the political arena that is going to stand for the American people and beat back against these establishment hacks and these radical Democrats who truly are destroying our country. People got to stand up to this stuff. This is not about being just supportive of Donald Trump. This is about saving America. If you allow stuff like this to occur in New York, it's not going to stop there. It's only going to grow in our country. It's going to lead to the demise of America. I don't want to see that, Laura. I know President Trump doesn't want to see that. That's why he's going to stand strong against this foolishness and fight for the country.
Important to note that despite the initial statements trying to politicize this verdict, saying that it was somehow partisan or Democrats or what have you, Donald Trump was convicted by a jury of his peers that were people here in New York.
Hold on, this is a Breitbart article. So GOP will have to retaliate against Democrats when they regain power. Yeah, he's right. That's the problem. I wish that wasn't the case, but we don't have a choice. They have shown their hands. When people tell you who they are, believe them. If we don't start fighting fire with fire, they're just going to keep doing it. And they'll take their wins and they'll laugh. And when we do it back, they'll say, you're threatening democracy. It's like, wait, you're the ones literally trying to jail your political opposition. You are the ones silencing them. You are the ones being funded by those, and taking billions from big tech in, let's call it in like-kind contributions to do your bidding and to be your marketing department. That's what's going on right now. So until we do that, and Rob Schneider's not even a former liberal, just watching what's going on. It's sort of crazy. But it's going to keep going.
Is justice delayed, justice denied?
Clearly not in this case. 34 counts, one after the other, after the other, after the other of guilty. It's accountability. It's exactly what America needs right now. We need for accountability to be had by all those that break the law, because as we like to continuously state, no one is above the law. And today's verdict demonstrates that.
Well, if my phone and the text messages I'm receiving are any indication, every Republican in the country is madder than a wet hen. People who are decidedly non-MAGA, not Trump fans, are blowing up tonight saying this case never should have been brought. This is ridiculous charges. It was egregious use of the criminal justice system. And I'm hearing people say, I had no intention of voting for Donald Trump, and now I am. And then if you ask the Trump campaign what's happening, they literally broke their online donation portal because people were rushing to the internet to give them money in the minutes after the verdict. So I think there's a real chance here. This is going to massively backfire on the Democrats and help Donald Trump.
Dover has an article this morning saying that there is a discussion within the Biden campaign, a debate really, about how much or if at all to focus on the criminal conviction of Donald Trump. What is the discussion? What's the plus minus on talking about it for the Biden campaign?
Well, let me say this. In a close election, everything matters. The most important things that matters are facts and reality. not people's opinions about facts and reality.
Whatever you think of the results, it's inconceivable in New York that anyone else other than Donald Trump would ever been indicted in this way by Alvin Bragg, the elected progressive Democratic district attorney who campaigned on the fact that he would go after Donald Trump, that he had a history of going after Donald Trump. This is a very political exercise, and you have to say that it accomplished what it set out to accomplish. What they wanted was to have a situation where they could call Donald Trump a convicted felon in the run-up to the election. We have an elected Democrat who got that accomplished. He got a very friendly judge who ruled his way on every important thing and turned the jury instructions into a roadmap to conviction.
The American people know that this is the weaponization of the judiciary. It's just the latest example we've seen, but we have Democrat activists who are prosecutors, who are attorney generals, who are going after President Trump and his allies all across the country. So, we have got a job to do with the campaign and make sure that the American people understand the major differences between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. We have records for that. We have a 4-year track record of President Trump where we had a very secure southern border. We had a very strong economy. We had a very strong standing in the world. And now we've got 4 years under Joe Biden where none of those are the case. The American public understands this, and that's why they have weaponized the judiciary to go after.
So all that matters now, Eric, is knowing this is communist persecution, knowing that this is left-wing Biden lawfare, knowing that this has all been engineered by the Democrat Party to take out Joe Biden's rival. What are we as a nation going to do about it? Are we just going to sit down and take it? Or are we going to reclaim this country for freedom and democracy and the rule of law? That's the only question that matters now, Eric.
Why did Donald Trump not ultimately take the stand here?
Well, that's a very personal question to him and to me, honestly. And it's a very difficult question. Of course he wanted to testify, and I don't say that because that's what he has said. He wanted to get his story out. I think the judge had made some decisions before the trial or the day of the trial started about what would be allowed to be asked of him by the prosecutors if he took the stand. And some of those questions were really complicated to answer because there's still appeals going on, and so there's a lot of decision points that go into whether somebody testifies. Ultimately, it's his decision, and he listened to us, and he relied on our counsel, and he reached a decision that he thought was right, which I very much agreed with.
So that means your counsel was for him to not take the stand.
I'm not going to tell you what my counsel was.
Well, you said he relied on counsel and he went with that decision and he didn't take the stand.
But ultimately, it was his decision, and I never say, and I think colleagues and folks that you have on here hopefully agree with me. I never say to somebody, "Don't take the stand." Right? That's their decision, and that's a decision that they have to make. But I want them to have They want them to know what will happen on the good and the bad if they do take the stand.
So no regrets on him not taking the stand?
Look, the verdict came down a couple hours ago. I don't know if I have any regrets about anything yet. I'm still thinking things through, and I think so is he, and so are everybody else around him. But at this point, I don't think that there was a conviction because he did not take the stand.
That's bullshit. I mean, the reality is that there is no greater threat against democracy than having Joe Biden and his allies trying to lock President Trump in prison for the rest of his life, to bankrupt him and his family, to remove his name from the ballot so that Americans don't even have the right to choose for themselves who to pick as the next president. I don't want President Biden to ever, I don't hear anyone on the left ever try to lecture the rest of us about attacks on democracy.
Pro-Trump banners hang outside the home of Glenn Stetler, who used to be a Democrat and attended Trump's rally last month.
Do you think this hurts his chances now that he's been convicted?
With the crowd of people that I saw, there's a lot of people that like this guy. He's a good person. I don't believe that he should be charged for it, and I really don't think it's going to matter.
Steve, why are there so many people in the professional Republican class that didn't see this coming?
Because they're not engaged. They're not engaged at all. They're at a very superficial level. This is when you control opposition, you don't have to be down in the trenches. Anybody that spent a second on this knew this day was coming. and they knew there were going to be 34 charges, and they knew exactly how they were going to spin it. They knew how Rachel Maddow was going to do it. They knew how Andrew Weissman was going to do it. They knew how Tish James was going to do it, all the way from Jamie Raskin to Arizona to Michigan to Georgia to what's happening in South Florida to what's happening on the Supreme Court now. If you're in this fight, it's very obvious what happened. It's also obvious how we get out of here. The people that text you today, I can't believe this happened, they don't matter. All they are is a bunch of hangers-on, okay? All they are is hangers-on. They're not in this fight with any passion. They're not in this fight with any courage. They're not in this fight with any spirit or any soul. And to hell with them. All they're going to do now is run around and whine and cry and say, you need the Nikki Haley's work. We don't need any of those people. They're not going to have an option not to vote for Trump, because they're not going to vote for the other side means they wouldn't get a job at all. If the Republican Party listens up here, we got a way to victory, and that way to victory is pure MAGA. This is going to take a fight, and only MAGA fights. Only MAGA's got the guts, the backbone, right, the BDE to get this done. And right now it's going to be a time of testing. And these rhinos are got to get out of the way, hold our beer, let us get it done, because I'm going to tell you, their pressure to basically de-Trumpify the second term, to get more consultants around him, to get more pollsters around him, to let the McCarthys come back, and to get Nikki Haley on the ticket as prime minister is going to be overwhelming. That's why I think the People's Convention next week, it will be historic, just given the timing, because there's going to be a ton of throwdowns there. Right now, we got to fight against the neoliberal neocons, as we also have to go against these globalist elitists that are trying to steal our country. And look, it's a fight I like. I look at the math. I like who's on our side of the football.
It's a before and after moment for America. What just happened today is a line we can't uncross. And these Democrats will rue the day they decided to use lawfare to stop a presidential candidate. I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about tit for tat. You just wait, and it won't be Hunter Biden the next time. It's going to be Joe Biden. It could potentially still be Barack Obama. It could still potentially be Hillary Clinton. We're going to have to look at what the statutes of limitations are on the various crimes they surely committed. We're going to have to look at passing laws to revive those dead crimes, felonies or misdemeanors, so that those cases can be brought out of time. That's what may be in the interests of justice, just like they did for E. Jean Carroll.
I'll say this: no crime, no jurisdiction, no due process. Conflicted judge, Soros prosecutor, Manhattan jury. You know, I'm going to tell you something, Sean. I've spent most of my legal career not as a former federal prosecutor, although I served as a chief of staff to an attorney general. I've spent most of my legal career fighting these people, suing the federal government, the DOJ, the IRS, the Treasury Department, the EPA, suing campaigns, fighting over voting rights laws, and so forth. And one thing I don't think our audience understands, and you need to understand, we have too many lawyers who are risk averse, too many lawyers who will whine and complain. I have spent 40 years sitting down with people who put on legal brass knuckles and take these bastards on in court. I'm at the appellate and Supreme Court level. That's where my focus has been my entire career. So what they need to do now, in my view, is to go up the appellate chain in New York. We need to stop whining about how long that's going to take. Seek any emergency, immediate appeal that you possibly can. That's one lane. And the other lane is to try like hell to get to the Supreme Court. People say, well, they're not going to take it. You know what? If George Patton was said, I don't think I can get to the Battle of the Bulge in time, we would have lost World War II. I am sick and tired of these legal defeatists.
I still think the best line of the day came from President Trump, and you've said it already. But when President Trump came out and said the real verdict will be on November 5th, he couldn't be more right. Because that day, we, the people, will decide who's going to win, who's going to be our president, not some partisan judge, not some political prosecutor, not 12 people from Manhattan, but we, the people, 330 million of us get to decide on that day. That, to me, is the real takeaway here. And I think the American people are going to be clearly and strongly for President Trump. You can feel that. You saw what happened with the website today. You know, President Trump uses a line that I think is so good when he's out on the stump, when he's at these rallies. He says, they're coming after my freedom, because I'm fighting for yours. And I think the country sees that even more clear today. And that's why I think he's going to win.
It's not anything that we haven't been planning for or expecting. Think back to 2020, what they did with suppressing the conversation around the Hunter Biden laptop. Think about how they changed all the rules in the middle of the game last time. We knew that going into 2024, they were going to do something different. They had to. They have Joe Biden, who's essentially just a senile, doddering idiot at this point. Inflation is terrible. The border's terrible. Global chaos all over the place. So they had to do something to change the playing field. That's why all of this lawfare is happening. This is why they've indicted President Trump 4 times, why they've charged him with so many of this nonsense, what they're trying to do. Now, the American public is going to render the real verdict. That's going to be on November 5th. So I'm very confident in that. But President Trump's pretty astute. He knows that they're going to try to do everything underhanded they can. They tried it in 2016. They were not successful. They tried it in 2020 and got away with a lot. 2024, no matter what they do here, we're going to beat them.
I get instructions from my wife